The 30th of May, we are starting our work at Media Center at Ukrinform. My name is Yevhen Bondarenko. We are talking today about Ukraine welcomes you simplified admission for applicants from the temporarily occupied and frontline territories. Our speakers are Yevhen Bondarenko, head of the Information Support Department of the President of Ukraine representation at the Crimea. Yevhen Maznev is the executive secretary at the Volodymyr Dahl University. Viktor Kuts coordinates the educational center of the Crimea-Ukraine for the admission at the Vernadskyi University. Valentina Potapova heads the direction of the National Advocacy Department for the Almenda Center for Civic Education. Violeta Artemchuk is the chief coordinator director of the NGO Donbas SOS. Welcome. On the 1st of June, in 2 days' time, an admission campaign will begin. It will start earlier than a general admission campaign. That system will be facilitated as it has been since 2016. We have seen reports on the process and the public opinion of the universities, the reason being to define the main problems and the ways to solve those problems and to make this year's system of admission better. Mr. Yevhen, can I start with you? Why is it that the admission of the students and intake from the temporarily occupied territories is important for Ukraine? How will it help to assist in communicating with the territories? Thank you. It's an important topic, the admission of the students, for future students from the temporarily occupied territories. They represent a generation that will be educated, then they will join the government structure, they will start up their businesses, they will implement their vision of the future of the country. This is why we hear the simplified words that our young people are tomorrow, but young people also represent our today, because the state of the Ukrainian youth impacts the development of the country and it impacts the future. The simple history as it happens, I hail from the Crimean Peninsula. I left Yalta before the occupation. I left to be educated, and I'm often asked, how does young generation treat, what is their vision about this situation? And I'm saying I have been lucky because the way you choose your university, you are influenced by a number of factors, by the environment, by your parents, by the information space, the sources that you are reading, different messages and the narratives among which you exist. The young people at the temporarily occupied territories must be treated, and we should be aware that they are victims of the Russian Federation, and this is important to remember. They are hostages indeed, because they don't have the news that other young people living in the Ukrainian territory are living. When we talk about the admission of the people from the TOT, we should be aware that the mechanisms, that is, an actual trip from the Crimea, for example, is much more complicated, especially with the beginning of the full-scale invasion. It requires a much more facilitated communication. Why is it important? Since 2014, we have seen a development in the autonomous peninsula of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol. What we see is that the occupying country has been actively imposing the narrative to make sure that there are fewer people from the occupied territories willing to enter the Ukrainian universities. The messages are different. It's either that people are frightened, and the other point is that they want to project other kind of future. And that creates, and artificially does, for the people from the temporarily occupied territories. For example, the perks that young people are offered, their privileges and exemptions. What they want to do is to make young people from the Crimean Peninsula to enter Russian universities. This is the way to impose the Russian narratives, because Ukrainians will go to Russia, they will get assimilated there. And the people who are living in the occupied territories will see an intake of people coming from the mainland Russia. Why? For them to enter those local universities and make up the colonization population. This is not something new. Russia has been doing that since 1773, when the Crimean Khanate was occupied, followed up by the Soviet Union. That kind of information and the narratives must be viewed anew. We must set up new possibilities for our citizens, for the generation that has been taken hostage. While preparing for today's press conference, I looked at the statistics, which refers to the period of full-scale invasion. In the Russian Administrative Code, it's called Article 20.23, the so-called discreditation of the Russian army. And according to the Russian Administrative and then Criminal Code, has been published in 2023, enveloping the Crimea Peninsula as well. Today, in this territory of Crimea, we have registered 802 cases when people are charged with the so-called discrediting of the Russian army. But effectively, that means that people are charged with their pro-Ukrainian position. Almost one-third, up to 50% of the cases, refer to the young people living in the occupation, but they are very active in their pro-Ukrainian worldview. And for these people also, we have to build up and sustain such communication for them to take advantage of their getting education in the Ukrainian universities. Thank you, sir. We are talking about the simplified, facilitated procedures for the TOT people and the frontline territories. I would like the next speaker to talk about the specifics of this procedure and how it is being effected. Welcome, everybody. Before I begin to talk about the topic per se, I have been overwhelmed with feelings that I think it's the Ministry of Education and Science must be talking about those issues. These are the people who have been developing such programs. I am representing an NGO. This is symbolic, isn't it? As for the facilitated system of admission, my NGO, Donbas SOS, perhaps since this facilitated admission system has been launched, we provide information for young people, because this includes diversified way of informing people. Of course, the range of services was much wider before the war. We have young people asking us about this facilitated system. I believe this is one of the breakthrough steps towards engaging young people from the temporarily occupied territories to the public space of Ukraine. What is the essence of the system? Why is it simplified? What do we mean by saying it's a facilitated system? We all will know that 10th year into the war, the people who have left schools in the occupied territory, if they're 16 years now, they were 10 years ago, naturally. They have passed a long way. They all at that time, they only entered the secondary school. Perhaps one of them was a first grader or the second grader. Unlike the situation in the newly occupied territories, as a rule, the situation used to be when the school children did not go to the Ukrainian schools. They had private tutors. And when you're 16, they don't have a certificate, not 100% of them, but majority of those of that generation of the newly occupied territories, as the rule, they attend the online schooling, but they are broken away from the educational space. It is very difficult for them to enter the Ukrainian university. One thing is to leave that territory and have your test taken in the Ukrainian institutions. It is but natural that this system should be facilitated. That's the nature of it. Those school leavers, the future entrants, are eligible to entering without an available secondary education certificate. For them, it is important to take two tests, Ukrainian history and Ukrainian language. Can you imagine how can they take an exam if you are living in Donetsk and Ukrainian history or Ukrainian language, for that matter, is something that is quite difficult. That is why they will not be successful in a general channel of testing. For them, we have defined a system when these people select a Ukrainian university, and that university, as a rule, has the so-called base school through which they go in terms of their testing. As for the issues and tests per se, I will not pass a judgment. There are a lot of opinions about that. But I wouldn't know how these people living in Krasnodon or in Makiivka, as a rule, they will not, get an A mark. After they have set an examination and filled out a declaration, they will take the so-called profile examination at a university they have chosen. As for the simplified system, that is to say, 2 tests, 2 exams, and the entrance exam. One thing we should mention, and we do when we are asked about the admission campaign. One thing we say, you have to select a university. Many people that we talk to say that I have not yet made up my mind. The one thing I have to do is to leave this territory. One thing, they talk about the major they would like to take, and then we leave through the universities providing such majors. Once they have decided on the university, we stay in contact. Another point is that currently, because of the complexity of leaving that territory, you can take the online exam. The procedure is the same, but without leaving the TOT. The facilitated system also provides the following. Every university, there are some numbers of the university entrants are booked for the young people from the TOT. They have a very good chance to get an education at a very prestigious university for free. And then there are guarantees in terms of dormitory and fellowship. But the main thing is that they are on their way to dream, to be part of the Ukrainian public space. Thank you, Violeta. I would like, I think it's about that time that representatives of the universities take place. Mr. Maznev, would you tell us about the Dahl East Ukrainian National Universities? What are the questions that the entrants have? We have been working as they say, either fortunately or very sadly. Since 2016, we have an educational center, Donbas, Ukraine, and I think it was in 2021, they had the center, Donbas, Crimea, and the educational centers grow. Every university has now such educational centers. The main goal is to make sure that young people come from those territories. The statistics and our expertise, and I'm working with the entrance. What we have heard today is the old occupied territory. The number is decreasing. People are under the influence of propaganda. They don't know anything about Ukrainian life today. They live in that propaganda environment. Unfortunately, over last years, we have seen people coming from the territories where the hostilities are taking place, or territories that have been occupied over the last 2 years. We support all of them. The main question we have is that people are asking us, can we enter Ukrainian university? What is the procedure? They're not only asking about the procedures of entrance. In majority of them, and the government helps them, is the matter of they will have to pay for their education, or the education will be granted by the state. You will know that not everybody can afford to pay for their education. So there is a great support from all universities, including ours. We provide a lot of information. This center of mine has started working. First period was consultation activities, because people wouldn't know what kind of documents were to be submitted. We've done a lot of steps on our way. It's the third entrance campaign that we are living through. People are able to provide their documents and submit their documents online, which is of great aid, of course. Until 2022, there was a possibility to leave the occupied territories with all the restrictions. People wouldn't tell us where they were going. But after the February of 2022, it's virtually impossible to cross the line of engagement. And of course, when we talk about the hostilities area, it's virtually impossible to leave that territory. In other words, conditionally speaking, there is not a schedule of testing that is set in stone. If we have a person who says that I can do it now, we will do our way to make sure that he or she passes. And once there is a window and chance for them to take such a test, they will be offered to have a test in Ukrainian language, history, or mathematics. It can be done online. You can submit your documents, and of course the entrance procedures will take place. And once the opportunity arrives, people come here, and then they will receive a place at the dormitory and keep on studying either online or coming to Ukraine. Thank you for this explanation. Viktor, can I ask you about the Tavri National University situation? He's got a presentation to share with us. Welcome, everybody. Hope you can see and hear me well. Today, I would like to thank everybody. Perhaps you might have questions, and I am standing ready to answer. What I have heard today is something. The title of this talk is Ukraine Welcomes You. We are talking about the education for those who are searching for their possibilities. And they have been searching. Ukraine is expecting and waiting for them. We are doing everything possible and impossible for that moment to come closer. We have to learn to trust them. They have to learn to trust us. At our Tavri National University, named after Volodymyr Vernadskyi, there's a positive environment in our treatment of people and students and entrants coming from Donbas and Crimea. We don't have those dividing lines between us and them. If you look into the presentation here, it's something you have heard already. You have heard the facilitated procedure. If you look into that, it's not that simplified. You have to persuade a person that he or she is being waited here, that he or she will have answers to their challenges and questions. Creating the environment, the atmosphere of help and assistance and credibility is something that we are creating. We are accessible online. Our site is renewed twice per week. Our data is updated all the time. The situation is not that good. We cannot give up on those children. We will not leave them behind. This is our future as well, as it is their future, irrespective of the university they have chosen. The simplified procedure, what is it? When we look at the curriculum, what we have declared here is this. If the need be, we have specialists at the educational center, people who speak Azerbaijani, Turkish, Crimea, Tatar languages. That is to say, people will feel at home here. Of course, the procedure of provision of your interest is different from university to university, but in general, our university indeed comes from Crimea. We come from Crimea, and we will make it back to Crimea. And I hope that the students are aware of this need, and they will make this development, this reconstruction of the Ukrainian Crimea possible. Irrespective of the fact that the war is grinding on, I know it's an emotional issue, it's data, it's human fate, but our share of this fate is something we will not give up on. We will keep on working. Ukraine is waiting, and we are waiting and expecting these children to come. I appreciate a lot what the Ukrainian universities are doing to increase the number of entrants. It's not the bravery that matters. It's because when you're living in the occupied territories, you have to be brave and audacious, but you also have to have information how to go through the admission procedure. Ms. Valentina Potapova, would you tell us what kind of help from the media, from government, from the NGO will they have? I know that a number of NGOs are launching their information campaign. Will you share with us about that? Thank you very much. Today is the 30th of May. On the 1st of June, an admission campaign will be launched for the citizens of the temporarily occupied territories. It is important that today's event is a channel of spreading the word. It is important for me today that everybody who sees us, who will share this press conference, will get a message through to those who are restricted in their access to such information. This is a situation where all channels matters. Either you call it Ukraine is waiting for you, choose your future. These are two major messages we want to share with the people in the temporarily occupied territories. Unfortunately, in 2022, the temporarily occupied territories increased into twofold. It was 13%. Now, according to the information from the president, it's 26% of the territory of Ukraine being occupied. The educational centers have not changed their names. They're still called Donbas Ukraine, Crimea-Ukraine. It's not honest to those people who are living in the TOT in Zaporizhia Oblast, in Kherson region, and we are seeing a very powerful foray and advance of the Russian troops in those territories. Internet sites are blocked there. That's why to unite NGOs into a powerful information public awareness campaign is a powerful way. It's not a simple reason why we have joined our efforts. We did it before, but this year we decided we should be together, that the synergy of these NGOs can bring about a better result. It's not the synergy of NGOs, but the synergy of the educational centers, the synergy with the government bodies, and I am grateful to the permanent representation mission of Ukraine in Crimea. They always stand with us, and it is a shame that today with us we don't have people representing the Ministry of Educational Science. Perhaps they might have planned some presentation or a separate message to share on behalf of the Ministry of Education and Science, and I would be glad if it were the case. The more messages we have, the better it is for the people in the occupied territories. Let us remember a girl from the Tavri University by the name of Pavlina. She mentioned that she had passed a terrible way to Ukraine, and she found herself in Ukraine, didn't know where to go to. A girl who was collecting money for 2 years to enter a Ukrainian university, but she didn't know where to go to, where to turn to. That is to say, Ukrainian society is doing not enough to break through the wall that the Russian Federation has erected. Today we are talking about a global competition, competing for the young people. And I appreciate Mr. Bondarenko saying that it's not an end in itself. It's not a kid. It's not a entrant in the occupied territories selecting a university. It's a powerful politics of the Russian Federation to change the structure of the occupied territories, to take away the young people from the occupied territories for their own interest, to change their consciousness and worldview. This is why it is important for the Ukrainian state. It's a matter of state security. I would like to underline this. It's not about entrance per se. It's about the future. It's about the national security of this country. It is very important that this information campaign should be launched on the June the 1st, and today, on May the 30th, we are beginning to talk about this. We want this campaign to be joined by the whole Ukrainian society, because when we made a public opinion poll asking people, where did you get the information, the first thing they mentioned was sites of the educational center, sites of the universities. Second was the Ministry of Education sites. Who did support you? Who supported you? And first place was occupied by their parents, by their family, by their loved ones, by their friends. That is to say that, sadly enough, we cannot make sure that we are heard in the occupied territories. But the grapevine has not been cancelled. The words from the lips. I want to make sure that people who have relatives in the occupied territories to share this message. On our side, what we have done is the following. We have set up a website called Entrance 2024. Again, there's a plethora of NGOs that have joined their efforts. Here you can see such bookmarks where, in a simple, plain language, you can have the answers to the questions what people, young people from the occupied territories will face. The simplified procedure, how to provide your documents online format, that we have seen a breakthrough here, and we appreciate that. This is the procedure that takes into account the fact that the children in the occupied territories don't have Ukrainian passports. They don't have Ukrainian educational certificates. And this procedure gives them an opportunity through their educational scholastic declaration to provide such information. They will be included into the system when they are guaranteed a free education. But my point is that you need to take into account the timing, because you have to submit your documents when the government-sponsored programs are announced. You can do it later, but it's better to do within the time framework. You will be given a room in the dormitory, and according to our information, almost everyone applying for such a place are granted one. You also have a chance to join the European system through the international exchange programs. This will lead to a diploma recognized throughout the world. This is where I would like to delve into. We have a lot of questions from the people who've left for the third countries, for the European countries. What they're facing is the situation that they cannot be enrolled as the first-year students in Europe because they don't have a certificate of the secondary education. That's why I beg everybody listening to us to share the information that there is a simplified procedure of being granted the secondary education certificate. To find a job, it is very difficult when the diploma has been issued in the occupied territory. This is a paper, a document that will be effective somewhere in Krasnoyarsk in Russia, and anonymity is also guaranteed, and the safety and security of your data. We have been assisted by the Office of the Human Rights Ombudsman, saying that Ukrainian government does take care, does help those people from the occupied territories to be in good spirits, that they feel that they are being helped during this admission campaign. I thought I would click on this bookmark. If you follow this link, learn more, you will find quite a detailed information. The algorithm of your actions is here for the entrance, and again, for those who have their relative connections and ties with your loved ones, share this info with them. If there is something that remains unclear, there is a list of NGOs ready to provide free of charge consultations. I think Violeta will back me up. Last time I was talking to an acquaintance of the entrant who was a lawyer, and after she talked to me, she asked me, how much do I owe you? How much money do I owe you? And I told her it's a decade now that we are working pro bono. To underline, NGOs work pro bono, free of charge. We are ready to help you on your way. I can talk for hours, and Violeta can also talk about that for a long time. Once you turn to the educational centers, I know that they will be helping you from the point you show up until the point you enter the university. These children will not be left behind. Journalists, I believe there might be some questions from the floor as a result of this roundtable discussion. You are welcome to ask our panelists. Shikenka Marina, at Ukrinform, you mentioned that the entrants living currently in the occupied territories can also enter the online format at the Ukrainian universities. How do you view the quality of such an online format of education? You also mentioned that anonymity is granted on those websites. If people are still in the occupied territories, can their information be secure if, in case they are students of the Ukrainian University? Let me have a go at this. Anonymity is guaranteed. One phase, one stage is the entrance, where this is where the educational centers are. You are working with them. Anonymity is indeed granted through the system Prozoro since the beginning of those centers. Once it was called the line of engagement, which is now called the line of hostilities. You cannot decipher that information. The only person who enciphered the information will know where these people come from. As for the distant online education, unfortunately, this is the environment we are living in. Perhaps it has to do with those universities that have left their permanent place. This is what we have done twice. Once we have moved, our students have moved with us, and our entrants are also moving with us. And of course, many of them have left abroad. The online format has been up and running for a number of years, and we have been developing this system because we have been on the move all the time. So there is a possibility of online education. For teachers, teachers don't know where their students come from. Of course, there are people who have moved into the territories under Ukrainian government control. They are granted the status of an internal refugee. The teachers wouldn't know who has entered the university through the educational centers. Sometimes we are asked, what are the statistics and the share of those living in the occupied territories or elsewhere? We say that this is a sensitive issue, and we don't provide such an information. We have been changing places twice. We have acquaintances, relatives in the occupied territories. We know what it is when people living there are impacted, frightened, and they're under different situation. Of course, all the educational centers, of course, are targeting young people, but not only young people exclusively. When we talk about the areas of hostilities, we don't discriminate between their age. So the centers will support all the entrants entering the Ukrainian university. As for the age, the educational institutions are expecting people from ranging 18 plus, but you can also enter university through our vocational colleges. We support them 360 degrees from the time they have entered, and we are helping them all the time. Once they have become ours, they have become our students. Perhaps it might be a secret for them, but it's not a secret for us, is that their group mates wouldn't know where they come from unless they share such an information. We don't share the information with a third party. In their declaration, they state that their personal data can be processed, and in case they need be, we take on board the NGOs, our experts and specialists, but these children will not be left behind. They will be living in our big family. As for the vocational colleges, it should be noted that the entrants who are likely to have problems with their documents, you can enter for the curriculum of the vocational education, that is grade number 9. And these college students will be encouraged to enter as sophomores or tertiary of our university. Thank you. Do we have more questions from journalists? Otherwise, I have a question. At the very inception of this talk, I mentioned that monitoring has been done among the people coming from the TOTs. What problems have been singled out as the result of this monitoring and public opinion polls, and what are the ways towards solving such issues? Perhaps this is a question for the NGOs. The major challenge is accessibility of information. And this is because the websites are blocked. The government websites are blocked 100%. If you take advantage of the VPN, the provider is analyzing that and recording it, and then you are asked to have a chat with the FSB people to explain to them why you visited such websites. It's a situation of terror. The channel, unfortunately, must be the word of the mouth. This is what I have mentioned already. The websites of the educational centers are not blocked because there are a lot of them. Then another issue is the point of exiting that territory. It's a major issue that requires a solution, including from the government side, because the representatives of the educational centers, you know, they didn't mention it, but there is a recommendation from the Ministry of Education recommending that the education must be done offline, especially in Kyiv. In Kharkiv, the situation is different. You can have an online education, and children cannot go to the offline schools because they cannot leave the temporarily occupied territories. And we know examples when people were made dropouts. And let me remind you about Evelina. They have covered such a path, and they are now dropouts. This is a sad situation. We must provide a solution to such things. According to Decree 271, these people have to submit a paper document within 3 months. Unless a person has not left that territory, he or she cannot provide a paper documentation. Although people from the government claim that 271 decree does not write it exclusively that you have to leave the territory, and I'm asking them, how do you provide paper documents unless you have left the territory? There is no Ukrainian post or new post available in the Crimean Peninsula. This is the second major problem, and it doesn't have anything to do with the activities of the educational centers. This is a decision to be taken by the state. A third issue is financial welfare of those who have made up their mind to leave the TOT. According to our polls, almost 50% of these children who have exited the occupied territories, who have been given places at the dormitories, their financial welfare is south of 8,000 hryvnias per month. I can't imagine what kind of food they have. This money is only enough for your fare on the public transportation and your food. They have to start working since day one of their education. Until 2014, I taught at a Crimea University, and when my students began working as a freshman, and I told them this is not impossible, when you are first year and second year, you have to study. You can begin looking for a job once you have become a tertiary student. First year, you should concentrate on the quality of education. You will not be able to leap into the university environment once you have found a job when you are first year student. This is a situation that must be resolved. And all the NGOs tend to believe, and I am a spokesperson for them today, a special state-run program must be there in place, financing, perhaps with the international donors, but a special program targeting children exiting the TOT and entering the Ukrainian University. Only then will we be able to solve the problem of exiting. Today, leaving the temporarily occupied territories is difficult because they don't know where to go. They are not in a place to take such a risk, and their parents cannot support them financially. There are no remits of money, way of money remits from the occupied territory. There are other issues, but these are three major things that I thought I would focus on. Thank you very much. I thank all the participants of this Rival Talk discussion. I believe that your efforts and ours will help to break down that wall that Russia has created. Let me remind you, we've been talking about this simplified admission for applicants from temporarily occupied territories. We will keep on working at 1300. We'll be talking about the illegal detentions and how Russia is waging war against Ukrainian journalists. Stay tuned.